Hi, how's everyone doing? Really? It's 3 o'clock? Everyone's like clapping their hands. I thought everyone would be like, whoa, like, it's late. Thanks so much for coming to my talk. It's To the Moon and Back. Actually really excited to give this talk now after this amazing keynote. How many of you were at the keynote this morning? Hopefully all of you, yes. Incredible, so incredible keynote. So those of you who don't know, my name is Julia Elman. This is my Twitter handle where you can follow me at. Mostly tweet about education, design, development, and Python, Django, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which I've been doing for over a decade now. And I'm originally from this wonderful city of Kansas City. Went to KU. I'm a Jayhawk. Woo. And I'm really honored to be able to speak in my hometown today. I currently work at the Iron Yard as a front-end engineering instructor at the Durham location. We are located inside the American Underground, which is the largest co-working facility, one of the largest co-working facilities in the world. My very first cohort of students will be graduating in August, so I'm really excited about it, but really anxious wanting to get back there. So definitely want to get back there and be with them right now. So mentioned Django. So I started learning Django, which is a Python-based web framework, for those of you who don't know, and started doing that in about 2008 at a little building in Lawrence, Kansas, right there at World Online. And it's the birthplace of Django. I've been working in the framework for, like I said, since about 2008. Really loved it, and love what I do. Love the community, and just really lucky to have worked at the place where it all began. So, and I love it so much that I wrote a book on it. So this book is coming out. Let's see, it's already out. You can get the raw and unedited edition. So on O'Reilly's website, there's a link right there in order to go to it. And if you want a discount card for the book, I've got some. You can just come see me after the talk. And I also have these the O'Reilly lady, she snagged some for these awesome little Python books they haven't put out yet. So I grabbed some if you guys want to get some from me before then. So I intentionally left this slide blank because it's going to take a little pause here. So we'll be talking about some big problems, some big globally impactful problems throughout this talk. So I just kind of want to take a moment after sort of this introduction to take pause, think about those for a minute. We're going to be talking about our past, our present, and the future of solving big problems that make a global impact. So let's start out by looking at the past. Let's look at the 1960s, which is considered the cultural decade. It included the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement, Vietnam War, and the hippie generation. President Kennedy took leadership in 1961, and he started his term with this speech. And that was on September 12, 1962, where the president shaped our dreams of space with his famous speech at Rice University and piqued our nation's interest in space. Created a vision beyond what we ever thought the world was ever capable of doing. We are going to walk on the moon in this decade, he said. And on July 20th, 1969, that dream became a reality.
At 15 seconds, guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engines running. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. 30 seconds forward, drift. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn
Armstrong is on the move. Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon. On this July 20th, 1969.
It's one small step for man. One giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful, Samuel. It has a stark beauty on United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out here. Beautiful, beautiful. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation. Tranquility Base, Houston. Guidance recommendation is pings, and you're cleared for takeoff. Roger, understand. We're number 1 on the runway. 7, 6, 5, engine arm exit. Beautiful. Very smooth. Very quiet ride. Apollo 11, this is Hornet, over. Apollo 1, this is Apollo 11, reach the last course, our position 1330.
Anyone alive during that time remembers the amazement, wonder, and hope, and what far-stretching goals the human race could and had accomplished in just a few simple steps. This age became the dawn of a new era. We gained a whole new perspective of the Earth and our surroundings. This image right here was taken on the Apollo 8 mission. It was the first image of Earth, and it's titled Earth Rising. Before this, there was no representation of Earth as depicted as having clouds or an atmosphere. You can see our newfound awareness in the years following the Apollo missions. Let's take a look at that. So in 1962, John F. Kennedy gave his famous moon speech. Shortly after, we were able to walk on the moon on the Apollo 11 mission in 1969. Well, it's funny what happened after that. So in 1970, the EPA was founded. The Comprehensive Clean Air Act was signed. Earth Day was implemented. In 1971, Doctors Without Borders was founded. Where do you think the term without borders came from? Maybe it had been the depiction of the Earth having an atmosphere and clouds, possibly. Could be something like that. The Comprehensive Clean Water Act was signed, and DDT was banned. Think of how much innovation happened in such a very short amount of time in human history. Advancements in policy, technology, and the motivation to move the human race forward with endless possibilities. The world started to have a new energy and hope for the future. You can see these in the events that followed the moon landing and how it shaped the years to come. So let's fast forward to 2014 now and where we're at today. Technology has really taken over much of our daily lives and what most of us in this room make a living at. But where are we at today as technologists in advancing the human race forward? What great strides and efforts are we making in similarity to that of the 1960s? Now, I'm going to show you an article that really struck me and motivated to give me this talk to you today. This is the November-December 2012 issue of the MIT Technology Review. And this is actually Buzz Aldrin, one of the 3 men that was on the Apollo 11 mission. And his face says it all: utter disappointment. So what happened? What happened to make Buzz so sad? I'm going to run some of the few facts outlined in that actual article that might explain things a bit. We're going to start with Silicon Valley. Can we blame Silicon Valley? So people say that there's a lack, a sense of real innovation coming out of Silicon Valley, and instead worry that as technologists, we're more focused on enriching ourselves with trivial gadgets and toys. Now, the driver of Silicon Valley is venture capitalism. Venture capitalism investments help fund these new types of technologies. And in the 1990s, it started focusing on the personal computer revolution. And to combat this, the Founders Fund was created. It helps drive innovation and started investing in bigger problems. It was founded by some of the founders from PayPal and Napster. And by 2011, it raised more than $1 billion in aggregate capital. It's funded things like Causes, Vodafone, and SpaceX. So is Silicon Valley a problem? Is that the issue? A little bit skeptical. Venture capitalism has struggled to invest in solving big, globally impactful problems because it's a high risk of investing in those things. For example, biotech and energy, there's a big payment up front for those things with no certain time lapse, and it's risky without immediate economic value, which usually equals no funding. So, all right, let's put the personal computer revolution aside. We were in the internet. Let's put that aside for a minute. We solved big problems once. What really changed? Let's run through a few more ideas. Sometimes we fail to solve big problems because our institutions fail us. For example, in 2010, less than 2% of the world's energy consumption was derived from sources such as wind, solar, and biofuels. The reason? Economic. Coal and natural gas are cheaper than solar and wind. Petroleum is cheaper than biofuels. We need renewable energy technologies that can compete with the price of coal, natural gas, and petroleum. And at the moment, those don't exist. Another reason we fail to solve big problems is because we over-engineer the solutions when they merely need a simple answer. In 2012, malaria killed an estimated 483,000 children, mostly in Africa. That is 1,300 children every day, or one child almost every single minute. To combat this, Bill Gates and Nathan Myhrvold promoted and funded research to help fight the battle against malaria. They did things like create better vaccines, genetically modified mosquitoes, and, this is true, mosquito zapping lasers. There's a video, you can see it out there. I've been testing this out. When the real answer is much more simpler than that. For the most effective cure is eliminate standing water, drain swamps, provide mosquito nets, and increase prosperity throughout the region. Combined, these simple methods have been proven to be most effective in combating this terrible disease. Another reason why we fail to solve big problems is that we don't actually understand what the problem is. In 1971, President Nixon declared the war on cancer and signed the National Cancer Act. Shortly thereafter, we soon discovered there are many different kinds of cancer that are fiendishly resistant to treatment. And it's only in the last decade that we've begun to understand these different kinds of cancer and created targeted therapies to actually combat them. Hard problems are hard. Yet we were able to fly humans to the moon. They walked on it and then came back. Now, why was that successful? What happened there? Based on historical evidence, we can solve big problems if these three things are actually in line. Number one, large organizations investing time, energy, and funds to solve the problem. For example, investing in new and sustainable technologies. Number two, broader research, scientific and computational evaluation on the actual problem that create targeted solutions to problems we try to understand to the best of our ability. And number three, active political leaders making statements for change. So creating policies that coincide with that change and actively engaging the public towards collectively solving that problem. The list of hard problems is ever growing. Rapid climate change, poverty, access to clean water, disease and epidemic, human rights violations, and easy access to quality education. So how can we help? Where can we even start? And who the heck am I to even tell you all any of this? What I can tell you is something that I care about and I've been working on in my local community. Let's talk about education. So can anyone tell me what this is? Logo, right. So this was the first programming language I learned as a kid in first grade in a tiny little school out in Topeka, Kansas, which is a stone's throw away from here. You could do things like this. You could draw boxes and squares and crazy psychedelic trees, then show your friends how cool you are. This is awesome. I'm a creative person by nature, so for me it was amazing to be able to start doing these things at such a young age and have that opportunity. It really started my interest in computers and introduced me to computational thinking. And what is computational thinking? So computational thinking is a set of problem-solving techniques that we as software engineers use in order to solve big problems. First part of that is decomposition, where you take a large problem and you put it out into smaller, more manageable chunks where you can actually solve those targeted issues. Another one is pattern recognition, which helps identify similarities and patterns in between objects. Algorithmic design, which is a step-by-step strategy to solve the actual problem. So why is this even important? Why am I even bringing this up? Tomorrow's politicians, civil servants, police officers, teachers, journalists, and CEOs are being created today. We need to teach this new generation of computational thinkers and make them equipped to solve big problems in this technological age that we're actually living in. But therein lies another big problem. In the state that I live in now, North Carolina, it's one of the few states that actually counts computer science as an elective for graduation from high school. This is a good thing. But it's also ranked as 46th lowest state in teacher pay. The teacher turnover rate is up 2.2% in the last year alone, and it's reached a 5-year high. There's a lack of job security, which creates a space in which it's difficult to retain quality teachers and create diverse programs that involve tech advancements. To combat this, a group called Refresh the Triangle in my community decided to get together and give back to the community by doing a one-day event called the 2012 Teen Tech Camp. It was a volunteer-run camp in which you spend a day teaching local teens for free how to use the internet and program. And it was a lot of fun. I volunteered as teaching just HTML and CSS, sort of a beginner HTML and CSS, sort of dipping their toes in the water into the web. And the day was amazing. It was held at the Southwest Durham Regional Library, and the kids all came ready and eager to learn. We used some of the resources, the limited resources that we actually had available at the library. And while we didn't have a lot of equipment at the time, it was really amazing to see what the kids were able to actually do with the stuff that they were given. Now, some of the volunteers actually brought other computers with them, and one of those computers happened to be a Raspberry Pi, which is about $35 microcomputer that's about this big for those of you who've never seen them. I also brought a couple books on Python, and at the time, the kids were interested in learning about these things, but we didn't have a curriculum, and we didn't really have anything in place we didn't have an organization around it to teach it. So in 2013 at PyCon, which is it's actually the National Python Conference, and that year is located in Santa Clara, California, there was a Young Coders tutorial in which the kids learned Python on Raspberry Pis throughout a one-day session. And it was actually between 2 days, between 2 different age groups. But it was really amazing. It was put on by some friends of mine and created a curriculum that's actually free and open source and available for anybody who wants to do a Young Coders tutorial. It's on GitHub. And seeing this and really being inspired by it, decided to bring it back to the triangle. Putting 2 and 2 together, it made complete sense to do. So I went back and I got together with a few folks. Autumn Winters, librarian, Kurt Grandis, and a couple other people, including Sarah Kahn, who's my partner in crime there, getting together and organized the Young Coders, the Teen Tech Camp 2013. And everyone was all for it. It didn't really take much to convince people, like, hey, we want to teach a bunch of kids programming on Raspberry Pis, and it was really great. We started this game plan and gained sponsorships, outreach for equipment donations, and did regular Google Hangouts in order to keep the organization going and keeping in touch with the progress of how things were being planned out. We also got a local business, which is Triangle E-Cycling, that actually donated monitors, keyboards, mice, Ethernet cables, and all sorts of stuff for the kids to take home with them at the end of the day, which is really great. It was amazing to see it all come together, and it was a vision for the community. It was a way, and there were times where I didn't think we'd actually pull it off, but we all really came together. And this picture is taken the night before, where we all were setting up everything. And people from all around the Triangle, which is a fairly large area, came after work, before work, took the day off in order to set these computers up for the kids for the next day. And it looks something like that, which is great. All of the little Raspberry Pis going to sleep before the next day. It was pretty neat sight to see on all the monitors there and getting things set up. It was an incredible effort. The next day, the kids all came ready and eager to learn. They walked in there, they wanted to be there, and were actively engaged in the stuff that we were teaching them. We taught them the basics of Python programming, like most programming languages, so variables, how loops work, and they ended up writing some functions in the end, a little game, and really just getting used to what programming is, kind of like what I did with Logo. And at the end of the day, it looked something like that. So all those kids got to take home Raspberry Pis with custom cases that were made with a 3D printer from a local makerspace, and it was fantastic. I could look at this photo all day. And while I don't expect these kids to come out of this one-day camp exceptional programmers and knowing everything about Python and Raspberry Pis, it was amazing to get them engaged, interest, and wanting to learn more. The one thing that you can do for a kid is teach them the love of learning. Because the end result is when one of your kids from your class sends you a video of what they made at home. And it looks something like this.
So basically I've hooked up this ultrasonic sensor right here to my Raspberry Pi, and then it has a program on it that will measure the distance with the ultrasonic sensor. And if the distance is less than 30 centimeters, this green LED turns on. If it's in between 30 and 50 centimeters, the blue LED turns on. And if it's greater than 50 centimeters, the red LED lights up. So it works like, and then the program ends after it loops through that 200 times.
This is one of, I think, our key mission is as technologists. This is our moon landing. I feel a responsibility to teach kids computer science. And if you're interested in education, you don't have to run a teen tech camp or young coders tutorial. Go speak in a classroom, local library, or users group. Let's say that's not really your thing, you're not really wanting to teach, how else can you contribute? And you feel more comfortable maybe contributing code to an open source project or initiative. Here are some places that I've put together for you to check out in order to learn how to do that. So I'll start with the first one here, is Code Montage. So Code Montage's focus is to empower coders to improve their impact on the world. It connects organizations with volunteers. They work with volunteers such as Usha, Digital Democracy, and the Sunlight Foundation. They did a Coder Day of Service this last January with 1,200 hours of coding, which amplified over 50 projects in that one day. There's also Code for America, which focuses on bringing together local governments and technologists to make cities better. There's one located here in Kansas City as well, if you all are from here and are interested in getting involved. There's also Girl Develop It. something that I'm involved with. And the focus of Girl Develop It is to exist to provide affordable and accessible programs to women who want to learn software development through mentorship and hands-on instruction. They have low-cost classes and other free code and coffees where you can go learn about technology and other things for women to be getting involved. There's actually a local Kansas City chapter here, which is run by Michelle, who's going to be speaking tomorrow. So if you're interested in learning how to get involved with Girl Develop at Kansas City, you can go talk to her and learn more about that. There's also Hack for Change, which is making the world a better place by developing practical open source technology solutions to respond to some of the most complex, challenging problems we face. They run a National Day of Hacking, which happened this past June, and City Camp Kansas City is actually involved. Is there anybody in the room that's involved with City Camp Kansas City? Raise your hand. Anyone? Okay, well, someone should get, yeah. So y'all should check that out. So start simple, but start. Start with something that you're passionate about. Pick something that's meaningful to you, but start. Your talents and gifts are valuable to the global community. So let's change the future together. Thank you. There is a mic right there if people have questions. I'm also open up for if people have initiatives they would like to bring up that they're involved with too. Love to hear about it.
Just go back off those last 4 links.
You guys want to see the last 4 links? Of course. That one. No questions. Thank you, sir.
So one item you mentioned on is including this more in actually core curriculums. Do you see growth or momentum of coding becoming part of the core curriculum?
It did. So core curriculum in what level of education? That's, yeah, right.
So I'm really anywhere. So
yeah.
And the reason this industry has underrepresented demographics.
Absolutely.
And other industries have as well, but they've closed that gap over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So medicine has made a lot of progress. And I'm wondering, is that partially because the foundation for medicine is included, biology is included in the core curriculum? And can we make progress by doing something similar?
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like I thought when writing this, I was sort of thinking about, where did I start? Where did I start really loving computers and getting into computers? Like, it really started in learning Logo in first grade, It's just like, and just hearing about, do kids actually do that now? Are they learning, BASIC or anything? Is that even involved in the schools? And the thing is that in public school education, it's not as necessarily accessible. It's not a requirement. It's not something they have to do, or be involved with. Typing, I think typing is definitely involved in the core curriculum in K through 12. Now, an initiative that's happening at other schools like UNC School of Journalism and the School of Library Science over at UNC, it's amazing the kinds of programs that they have involved at that level where they're actually involving people in the journalism school in programming. Like, you have to learn web dev when you're in that school. And when you're in SILS at the School of Library Science, you learn Python. You actually take a Python class while you're there. So that's why I was acting the levels. But when it comes to K through 12 and public school and state-run education, it's like not good. And that's why, being involved with things and putting on programs, and, I have people that have started, like, I have a friend in Colorado that started a Python coding club at a high school, and has been doing that for, I think, about a year now. And it's fun. It's fun to see, like, kids get really excited about this stuff, or just even adults or anyone. That moment where you're like, I was talking to you about this earlier, where you're like working on a problem, and you're like almost have it, and all of a sudden it works, and you're just like, oh, it's like the coolest feeling, right? It's like if you ever a skate or anything, and you did a trick, and maybe I'm the only one. Okay, you landed a trick. You landed a trick, and then you're just like, I did it. I've been working on this trick all day. It's like the same. It's like this feeling where you just can't it's really, it's addictive.
Here's the
Yeah.
thing, though, because kids these days are so jaded. And for example,
Are what?
So jaded.
Jaded?
Jaded.
Oh.
My own kids, for example.
What are you doing?
And I'm not
So
very
jaded.
separated. I don't know how to do that. So the trick is, so obviously I know how to program, and I've been trying to
Okay.
get them to learn how to do so for a while. But what actually will captivate them? So, for example, my son's going to go and play on his Xbox, right?
Yeah.
He's going to play this incredibly complex game and so forth, and then I am going to
Sing a song.
give him this little code that's going to make some LED lights blink, or I'm going to teach him how to add some numbers, and it's just not captivating enough. And perhaps I don't have the imagination.
Let me explain what the little blinky light thing that kid actually did.
No, I understand what I'm hoping
I would like
for.
to explain what he did, because I want to, maybe that'll help in solving the problem, because it's like, I think adult education, adults work better if they know the end solution, right? It's like, I need to know what is the bigger thing that I'm learning? Like, I'm learning this little thing here, but what does that affect? And kids, can be the same way. Kids, it's not as much as adult education, right? So with that kid, he saw an issue at his school. So the issue at the school is that there's like a cart where you would push in at the library, and the books would fall into the cart, and then you pull the cart out. Now, people were putting the books into the slot, but the thing wouldn't be there. Like, the cart wouldn't be there, so they'd fall on the floor. So he was like, that's funny. That looks like a problem I'd like to solve.
And it's real world.
And then, so he made that. He did the teen tech camp, and he made that because then there's a light that goes on, because the sensor senses when the cart's actually there. So for him, he saw an issue. He was given the tool to actually solve that. He made it happen. The school allowed for that to happen. So that's the other part of this, too. And then allowed for that light to be put in and everything. And then he made something. So I think actually giving kids, like, hey, you can solve this issue. You can solve this problem. I remember as a kid just being like, I'm a kid, why can't I do things that adults can do? I never really understood that. So giving them that.
I'm with you on that, and I think you're right in that
Okay.
something physical and 3D is more likely to get them interested. Maybe some kind of home automation type thing, so that they can lock their doors, away from us, and just things like that. But what I was hoping is that I would find something I could cheat off of, some kind of curriculum online that does home automation or something that interacts with the real world that I can then use and to guide me to teach them. Is there such a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many open source projects that teach you how to do stuff, like with a Raspberry Pi. And I love Raspberry Pi or Arduino or whatever you want to use. What is it, BeagleBone? And there's a new one that came out. There's all these new ones coming out that you can do stuff with. And it's fun for us. It's like, get a soldering iron, and you're going to actually he had to take a soldering iron and actually do stuff in order to make that work, right? You get a GPIO board and get the lights and put them all on there and whatever, right? So it's kind of like, there's tons of stuff out there. Yeah.
I actually wanted to help a little bit with that question. Kansas City has a number of app camps that go on during the summer where young children, it starts in middle school, goes all the way through high school, can come and use basically visual programming as a means to build Android apps. And
Nice.
they're sponsored by local companies, and we had, I got to judge one of the competitions last year, and these individuals did things like an app to be able to have small children communicate where their owies were more effectively to a doctor. Mm-hmm. There was one where they built one of those run away from you alarm clocks from just using these tools. And so I think one of the answer to that is sometimes visual programming languages are the answer to get kids engaged before they're ready for the text. Mm-hmm. And so app camps are one of them. Another one is Hopscotch, which is a great iPad tool for learning programming, and it's very visual, very drag and drop.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's Scratch, too. Does anyone use Scratch? Yeah, Scratch does. Not everybody knows about Scratch. So Scratch is sort of this visual tool also of you're not actually sitting on command line and, war game style and, whatever. So, which can be intimidating to be on the command line, to be honest. A lot of people are intimidated by that. So, But yeah, Scratch is another thing that you can use, that it's sort of like this little puzzle pieces that you put together and make things move around. This is created by MIT. Highly recommend checking that out. Yeah.
Hi, that was a good talk. And
Thank you.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about kids learning to program. And I was at a conference a couple of months ago. There was this little 7-year-old girl who did a talk. And she'd learned with her dad how to program a bit and how to solder. And she soldered a GPS device onto a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino, I forget which, and then attached it to a cat to find out where the cat was roaming, right? To figure out the cat's territory. So that's something that she identified with, and she came up with the idea as something she wanted to build and stuff. So I think it's, if you're trying to teach your kids to program, you need to know what piques their interest.
Yep.
For me, I like playing games. My dad got me one game, and he said, if you want more, you write them yourself. So I was forced to learn how to program.
Great. That's great.
So that's something that works as well. Another thing, you mentioned Logo. I think Seymour Papert, the guy who wrote Logo, he's written some really good books on teaching kids to program.
Oh, yeah.
So there's Mindstorms. So if anyone's used Lego Mindstorms, it's based on the book. And The Children's Machine, 2 really good books to check out.
Nice.
Right.
Awesome. Cool. Anyone? Thank you all. Oh, we got one more. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Almost cut it off there.
I'm going to throw in a plug for Kansas City. We have a lot of programs going on. UMKC every year has a science fair for the kids. It's only for kids.
Awesome.
Where they're not just doing computer programs, also building stuff. They have a problem to solve.
Yeah.
Build a rocket that goes the fastest or furthest or something. Then we have Blue Valley CAPS, which is Center for Advanced Professional Studies. They actually get people, and all their curriculum is based on mainstream industry. So they acquire talents that they're going to actually use in the real world, not book learning and something, put project together. And then the Blue Valley schools also have a, what do you call it, diff time, where they pick, let's say a child is interested in robotics. He can actually play with robotics every day for 30 minutes a day in the school, after the school, and they don't miss anything. What I wanted to ask you, though, Julia, is most of us work for profit companies. We don't work for non-profits. So are you just putting time outside of work towards this? Or how do you convince your company to say, hey, this is going to help us in the long run by developing the workforce that is so crucial going forward?
So that's a great question. I just do it. So I volunteer. I just give my time. I care. I couldn't imagine not doing it, you know? I think it's important. I feel like a duty, so to do that. Nobody's forcing me to, and it's important to me. And just getting, like, that video or getting an email from a kid, or, I mean, a lot of the kids that were at the Teen Tech Camp had never owned a computer in their lives, have never owned their own computer. They left that camp, like, with a monitor. I mean, you cannot give kids just a Raspberry Pi and say, have fun. It's like, they need connectors, because there's only an HDMI port that they can actually connect to. So an HDMI to, I think it was a HDMI to VGA we had to give them, right? We had to give them that. Ethernet cables, gave them power cords, gave them SD card with preloaded Raspbian on it, and distribution, and also monitors and all this stuff. And you know, it's a lot, but it's worth it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi.
So I'd like to ask, given that the emphasis seems to be that the problem is children not being taught these skills, and we've got all of these great opportunities out there that are getting started for them to have these hack nights or 1-day, 2-day events. Has there been any thought or effort in reaching the teachers who are actually the ones that have the dedicated time to address the children, the skills that these children need?
So a few things on that. Thank you. That's a great question. So a few things on that. Educating teachers. There's a lot of initiatives going on where professional programmers like ourselves are going and actually educating teachers, writing curriculum. That's the number one thing, is writing the curriculum for them to use, examples, teaching them, and getting those materials in place. Because a huge thing for these teachers is time. They do not get paid a lot. They do not have a lot. They spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, putting together things for their classes and get paid like nothing. And so to ask them to do that as well is a lot to ask them. So for me, it's sort of like going in there and helping them by doing it for them, providing it outside of the classroom or guiding them. That's the best thing I can do. Also, now I've sort of stepped into a new role with this teaching code at this coding school, so I have a much better understanding now, what it's like to be a teacher. So, and those responsibilities. Yeah, great question. Cool. We're out of time, so thank you all very, very much.
Thanks again, Julia.
You're very welcome.
This is a really interesting session in that it's not just about software; it's about change. So, I'm really glad you came and spoke.
Thank you.